Survivor.
Amazing. Amazing.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here, especially with my good friend Beverly. And we're here today to help create some wonderful takeaways. We really appreciate and welcome comments and questions that may arise during the show. So feel free. The word of the day is frustration. And I'm sure everybody has had some frustration over their lifetime, maybe even on a daily basis. But this is a good way of really getting into it and understanding the elements of frustration and maybe what you can do to deal with frustration better in the future. With that said, let me turn it over to Beverly and maybe a little catch up on frustration.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about a word for today, as I mentioned to you, Dawn, at that point in time, frustration was my word for that minute. And I don't think that I'm the only one that goes along with uh, the frustration that we have on a day to day basis. And it's for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, technology has just added to our stress. And
Mm-hmm.
we can't avoid it. It's there. It is what it is. We have to deal with it. But when we're talking about customer service, when we're talking about lines that don't connect, when we're talking about I have to get this done and I only have this amount of time to do it, and that's it, I cannot. That's a whole other thing as well. So it keeps on going and going. Frustration, which leads to anxiety, which builds up, and can become literally a mental illness. You can't, as well as a physical illness. So you really have to get a handle on these little frustrations and say to yourself, those little things add up to big things, and they're more important than you'd like to believe, because you always say, it's just this, and it's just that, but it's not. It's cumulative. So I think the topic is great for all of us because it's getting to be a busier and busier time of year. And yeah, so we're talking about frustration. And just to let you know, my name is Beverly Glazer, and it's always a pleasure to talk to Dawn on Tuesdays. And we're talking specifically about women empowerment. And I do help high performing women find the success in their life and in their business that they know they do deserve, but something is holding them back. And as I talk about that, it is frustrating. That's the gap that you have, knowing something is holding you back, but what is it? Okay. And when you have the tools and you know that this is where you want to go, there's this feeling of really being stuck, a feeling that how come I cannot do it? And it doesn't matter how much you've achieved. As a matter of fact, it's worse when you've achieved more because you've said, I can do so many things, but what's holding me back? Like, why? I can handle many, many people. I'm thinking of somebody, 300 other people, right? And more. No problem there. But when I'm just dealing with family members, uh, uh, I lose it, and why? Like, why? And so it's not only about the whys, it's really about how you can achieve where you want to be, where you want to go. And it's not about techniques, it's really about changing that inner game, changing what you already have, not what you already know, to have a deeper perception to be able to deal with whatever it is. So it's great. Frustration is, if you think about it, a feeling that can lift you higher, because when you start figuring it out, you say, there's something wrong. What do I do? What is missing? It's kind of a wake up call to say, there's a gap. Okay, I just was screaming at my kids, or I was just so frustrated with my wife, my family, and they just asked a simple question. So, what is that about, right? Why? And so it plays its toll. You cannot disconnect your business from your life. You absolutely cannot. And we don't live in a vacuum. So very often we can handle everything when we walk out the door, but when we walk back in, huh, oh boy, life kicks in. And it carries on into your business. And the busier you are, the more you're going to avoid the things that are really, really important. And other people are going to get frustrated. And there is a blowback effect for that. So, yeah, what a topic. And it all started with my frustration, which was technology at that point in time. And we all have frustration with that. So, I love to hear what you have to say. I love to hear how you manage your own frustration because it does take management, believe me. And just what do you do? And the lines are open, and you can always speak to us later. Me, I'm on reinventimpossible.com, but other than that, you can reach me on my profile. Don can be reached right here, okay, because you're listening on his profile. And absolutely, how do you deal? How do you overcome? Because every day can be a battle. Just getting up in the morning, and don't even think of if time your alarm didn't go off. Oh, okay, that's another catch up and frustration. So, Dawn, let's go on with you. How frustrated are you today?
I think mild to medium. Uh, no, I'm not frustrated at all to speak of because I think what you just said, Beverly, would be enough to cover a whole show just in value and interest, to be honest, because we always start with a word and then it's just a word until we open up the envelope. And then
Yeah.
whoever starts to share, it starts to become more of a back and forth, building off of what people say, and not only what people say, but what people say that allows you to think of the word in a way that you might not have. And when I look at frustration, it could be about it could be about them, it could be about me, and it's usually, and sometimes it involves more than one party. But I mean, if you dropped a pitcher, that would be frustrating, right? Because first thing you think is, I lost a pitcher, I got a mess, now I got to clean it up, and that is going to kind of burn for a little bit. If it's
Mhm.
about them, it could be somebody who was supposed to show up for a commitment and didn't, and now it puts you in a position where you were planning on something, you scheduled something, you prepared for something, and now it's not going to happen. And it doesn't end there because it was probably going to be a conversation that follows it based on what happened. And that's another thing. Frustration can lead to more questions, more doubt. If your car doesn't start, that's frustrating because now your plans are altered by praying it'll start the next time you turn it over, or what do I do next? And when you get too many things coming together at the same time, that's when things start to overflow, right? A little inconvenience is something you anticipate, but when multiple things happen to you and then follow that with something else that could be frustrating, it's really a matter of perception. What's frustrating to other people is just part and parcel of what they do. So I think unfamiliarity goes a long way to explain frustration. When you're used to it, like Beverly says, with technology, every time I start a show, there's always, will the sound work? Will the picture work? Will the internet connection be strong? Will
Mhm.
the other people's internet connection be strong? And you can't really focus if you're thinking of all these ancillary situations that surround it. And even when it's working well, it's almost like it could be in the shadows. You never know when it's going to show up. So there is something to, oh, understanding, and understanding things happen. and they're always going to happen. And it's not what happens, but how you react to it, how you recover from it, because eventually that picture that fell will go far into your memory and not come back, but it happened that day. And sometimes you just wake up thinking really great things are going to happen, or thinking this could be a challenging day, and that seems to be the roller coaster that you start on every day. And I think being optimistic and also being realistic, because when things happen to other people, you just see them. When they happen to you, you feel them, and you also project them. So once you're frustrated and you get on another call with somebody, they're going to get the tail end of that frustration because you're just recovering, you're not really focused. And again, it's, when someone once told me their life changed when they uh, exchanged the word fascination with frustration, when they became a little more objective and they said, well, that is so interesting. How could that possibly happen? It sounds like a million to one, and it happened to me. And then maybe you laugh. And that's usually the best way of taking it, because you can only control what you can control. But you can control your perception, you can control your reaction, and you can also have some control over your recovery, right? You fell down, you didn't like it, but you knew you had to get up, and maybe it made it better for you. So the question becomes, what did I learn from this? What lesson have I gained that the next time something like this happens, it won't be as frustrating? And I think the other element of frustration is sharing it. Is it lets it go when you say, you won't believe what happened to me, or I hope this doesn't happen to you, but if it does, this is how I dealt with it. And, there's always a silver lining if you have the opportunity to look for it, appreciate it. And gratitude goes a long way, because too many people look at imperfection, look at loss, and forget about the wins, forget about that it's a game that plays on. So I find frustration to be a learning tool, and it kind of makes you humble too. When you think you're really big and strong and you can't even operate some simple something, it does kind of bring you back to earth. And it also makes you, or doesn't make you, but motivates you to get help. Because if you're having the same types of issues, after a while, it's not about it. Why aren't you getting some more knowledge? Why aren't you seeing how it relates? And some things that are surprising to most people, it happens every day to them in a different way. So you can name a million things that may not be to your liking and that could be frustrating. Some things are simple things, superficial things. Some things are bigger things, like someone who's really focused on losing weight and they do everything they can that they possibly can. Nothing happens. And they feel so frustrated because I'm putting in the time, I'm putting in the thought, I'm putting in the work, and this is what I get. And that's where patience in any frustration situation really comes in handy. Well, count to 10 before you say anything, or take it back and think about it tonight. And again, everything is conditional. So Beverly opened up a whole can of opportunity.
Well, you covered a lot of turf there, Don. You
Yeah.
covered a lot of turf. Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking of actually a coaching client that I had that was driving home, and this was in the dark. It was after a meeting. He had bought a beautiful fancy car, and he's driving along on the highways, and it's dark, and all of a sudden the car stopped, like dead. All the lights, all the technology, everything just died. And it was late, and he's on the highway. And talk of frustration, talk about being tired, talk about not knowing what to do. And the first thing you know that you're not supposed to do is really, get out of the car. And who do you call and what do you do and all that kind of thing. So the immediate thing that we do when we're frustrated is react. And the immediate thing we're all supposed to not do is not react, to think, to stay calm, and to figure it out. Well, as you know, when you have a cell phone, the first thing you'll do is call or figure it out. Chances are, in this case, what happened was some people were leaving that event that he was coming home from, and they noticed the car and they stayed with him and figured it out. And they were able to get this car towed back to the dealership where it belonged. But the bottom line is things like flat tires, as you said, it's like, oh, now I have to fix this. And the first thing we have to do is stay calm, not think of all the things that you're missing out. But let's say you have to pick up your kids, or let's say, you have to meet someone or you have to go to a meeting. The first thing to do is not get upset with it because it is what it is. You have to think, stay calm. If it's kids, maybe call someone, maybe you can pick that child up, figure it out and not just react. And we have this reptile brain, we really do, the amygdala, that's going to immediately say, react to this. Something is going to happen. We got to go. We got to get it done. And that reptile brain starts first thing in the morning, as soon as you get up. And that is like, got to get up, feet on the floor. What do I have to do? Make breakfast, this, that, the other. Well, one of the ways you have to start training to slow down is to slow down before you even start. And that's where meditation is helpful. That's where doing stretches, yoga, thinking, um, organizing the night before so that you're not going to react. Don't immediately jump to the emergency, because in the grand scheme of things, there is no emergency. It's all in your head. And so when we can't do what we want to do, that's where the frustration gets in. But guess what? So what? The world doesn't care what you want to do, right? So what you have to do is work with the world, not be upset, angry, and frustrated with what is not happening, but be calm enough to understand that you can handle it and strategize how to handle it. And it starts first thing in the morning. It starts with mindfulness. It starts with breathing. It starts with meditation. It can start with a walk. It can start with exercise. It can start with getting up earlier and or going to bed earlier as well. It can start also with taking care of yourself, because if you're not feeling healthy, you're not even going to feel good the next morning. And so it starts really with the simple self-care stuff, so that we don't just react like that lizard, because we all have that brain, and that brain is telling us immediately to react, to be on guard, because something's going to happen. And guess what? Something always will happen, but we don't have to react, because we do have a cerebral cortex which says, calm down, guys. So don't let this one win. Okay. And that's where frustration, as you were saying, Dawn, is a reminder. It's a reminder that something is going wrong. You can't get what you want to get. And what I'm saying is, and you know what? In an ideal world, you would, but we don't live in an ideal world. So, how do we incorporate that? And the way I work with my coaching clients is I don't tell them what to do. Everybody knows what they have to do, all of us. But why don't we do it? That comes from here. Okay. And once we turn that inner game around, then we will follow through what works for us. But immediately, changing behavior is so difficult. Immediately, it's like, but I can't. I don't have time. My family needs me. My work needs me. My everybody needs me. But guess what? You need you, and you need to be able to operate on the most optimal level because of your family, because of the people that you're involved with. So it's really all about you and how you handle you. And those little frustrations can really bring you down and make you not on top of your game, somebody to avoid, somebody to fear, and somebody also who can get very, very sick because of the aggravation, because you cannot change everything. Even if people will say, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, I'm going to do it. Are you guaranteed that they actually will? Will they sabotage you? You do not have the real control. So, this is really what we're talking about, handling yourself, your own frustration with perhaps going slower, strategizing, seeing what you can do differently because it is about you. And for me, time management is imperative. And I think for most of us, if we're just running, 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 doing all the millions of things that we have to do, we cannot do what's really important to do. So, to manage time and prioritize with what is the most important thing to do will relieve the frustration. And still, you're going to be sabotaged. For me, it's like I said, usually it's technology because I have no control of that. But I do have control about how I react to it, and all of us do. Or anything, when you're going faster and faster to try to catch up, all the mistakes that are going to be done, guaranteed, right? So it's really about slowing down because the faster you go, the more frustrated you're going to get. And it's a losing battle. So when we're thinking about, and particularly women, okay, because this is about women's empowerment, very often in the workplace, women are extremely frustrated because they have reached a certain level, or perhaps they are sabotaged by other women in the workplace. I hate to say it, but it goes on. And what happens also is the anger, the frustration, rather than working with the situation and the problem and perhaps changing that. So, Dawn, I see there are many different people that perhaps we should acknowledge that are here, which is really cool.
Okay. Let me see.
I can't read it. I think I don't know.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, here I see
no,
we have comments. They're
yeah.
not showing up.
Well,
Um,
I'm going to give a high five to, I think it's Michaela. Hey.
yeah, we've got a lot of
And she
comments.
got yeah. And
Well,
Harvey is
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And I'm just going down, down,
Carrie's
down.
there.
I just want to acknowledge some people here. Yeah, go ahead, Dawn.
Yeah, I'll just read them real quick. I'm sorry they're not showing up, but I appreciate that there are interested commenters. But Carrie says, try not to get too, but I've been putting in applications, been ghosted. Well, that's part of the process, Carrie, and just keep going.
Yeah.
Michaela's here, and Michaela says, leaves an emoji with two clapping hands. So thank you for being here. Also, we've got our good friend Harvey Talk. That's all we can do, Carrie. Sure thing. I'll add you on Sunday. And Harvey says he wrote me a little message that said that he was trying to comment. He says, hi, great to be here with my good friends Beverly and Don. Well, it's always great to be with
Always.
Harvey. Harvey has a tremendous show. The franchise show on Tuesdays, the franchise brand show on Thursdays. He's also part of mine and Beverly's cohort group, which meets every other Thursday by Zoom. And if you're interested in doing your own show or joining our group, feel free to reach out to me. It's really been fantastic over the last year. And Harvey's a guy that really has shown his ability to overcome obstacles, work within situations, very dynamic. And, to what Beverly says, uh, and it's funny, me and Beverly have done so many shows that what she says was just about what I was thinking. And it's almost like having someone share what you were going to think before, which now adds more value to what you're going to say. And it is about preparation, it is about expectation and anticipation. So I do have a part of my morning that doesn't include the start of my morning. It's the preparation to get going, and that is meditation and exercise and good nutrition, putting yourself in the best position, the healthiest position to deal with things that are going to come your way. And, with frustration, there's also elements of fear, especially when they involve other people, right? You've got people coming over for dinner, your cake didn't make it, and now you're a little embarrassed and it's too late to get something else going. And all you can do is share the situation. And most people will identify with it or relate to it and come to be empathetic to you. And I think that's why sharing is so important, because you are kind of missing something that got taken away from you based on the frustration. And when someone says it's okay, don't worry about it, after a while you think, yeah, it is okay. I shouldn't worry about it. And if you're a perfectionist or a high achiever, you put yourself to a higher standard that what would be mediocre and acceptable is not nearly as much for you, because you've got a higher standard that you live by or want to demonstrate. But again, it could be a motivating situation. The other thing is you got to ask yourself, what do I need to focus on? Right? If your car breaks down, your first thought is my safety. It isn't about the car, right? The car you can put into dollar amounts. You can say, well, it's probably $500, okay? And now you say, well, it's $500. It's not great, but it's not the end of the world. So you start thinking about what's your first priority. Again, certain situations like dropping a pitcher, it's not a life-changing element. It might slow you down, might, especially if it's a beautiful picture that was in the family forever, then you start thinking of more things besides just broken glass. But you should, gratitude goes a long way in that situation. Be thankful for what you had, for when you had it, and how much joy you got from it, not what you just lost. Because once you consider a loss, you're a loser and you feel like a loser. And it's natural, but to what time frame? Is 5 minutes enough to get to normalize the situation and accept it? Because you can't go back. It's once it's broken, you can piece it together, but it'll probably never be the same thing. Same thing in relationships, and you feel so frustrated when you miss an appointment, because you know how frustrated you are when someone misses an appointment with you. And that happened a couple weeks ago. I kind of spaced something out, found out about 15 minutes after the appointment, and I rushed to it. And I saw the person was just there for 9 minutes and left. And I really apologized profusely, and the person was very gracious and understanding. I actually set up another appointment, which I had yesterday, and I thanked the gentleman for a second chance, because I know how difficult it is, because you feel less important when someone doesn't show up on a scheduled time, and you may not never know the reason. Could have been a family situation, a medical, you name it. So I also think by thinking the best of somebody and something goes a longer way than coming up and conjuring, well, they don't care about me, they don't respect me, they don't respect my time. Well, that's you talking to you for them, not them talking to you. And, again, if someone feels sincerely sorry, I understand, because what happens to you can happen to them, comes around, goes around, and also your ability to weather the storm, and there's situations that are not just in the moment, they're long term. Someone fires you, right? Someone leaves you. How frustrated is that? And then it becomes a lifetime situation, or a situation that isn't about a car. And that's where, when you think about things that are they don't really have the emotional connection as people or yourself. I let myself down, but more importantly, I let my family down. My friends are going to think this. And that's where ego gets in the way because you start getting embarrassed and ashamed and this and that. And all of a sudden, you're conjuring up all these feelings when it was a situation. And, the other thing is, people who know you will always support you, like you, and enjoy your company. The people you're afraid are on like a leaf on a tree that will just leave. They weren't really worth worrying about or having. And sometimes you never know those people. And again, that's frustrating when you think you got so many people in your corner, something goes wrong and nobody returns your calls, nobody wants to see you anymore. And you think that is so frustrating, but it's so hurtful because I believed that they were there. But again, reality, shows its face. You deal with it. It's not reacting, but responding. A lot of people are just awful where they'll throw something, they'll pound their hand against something, or they'll scream something. And, if that's necessary to express yourself to get it out of your system. But most of the time, it's like count to 10. Let's see where it is tomorrow. And a lot of things are never as bad as they seem to be when you first get the news, because once someone tells you something, it's a surprise, it's a shock. You're not prepared. You're hoping for this reaction. Now you got that, and it took you off center. But life is a game between you and yourself, and you make the rules, you create the punishments, you let yourself out of jail at a certain point. And, right? And at a certain point, if you can't be your own best friend, you shouldn't be your own worst enemy. And
Sure.
the question always comes out, why me? Why me? But that never happens when it happens to somebody else. So again, don't expect too much because you may get disappointed and frustrated. And don't expect too little because you'll never be the high achiever that you possibly can. But know it happens to everybody in some way, shape, or form. And the people who can go through life like Mary Poppins, happy as a lark, everything is beautiful. I mean, I envy them if they can put those types of lenses on and see through those rose colored glasses. But the main thing again is gratitude. I'm thankful for my good health. I'm thankful for my family. I'm thankful for my freedom. When you have those things, you have opportunity. And those are the most important things. And being humbled really does have an effect on you. So Beverly,
Yeah, lots again, lots and lots, lots. Yeah, okay, where do I start? I think I'll start and bring in other stuff, but start with Carrie. Um, Carrie, you have been trying very hard to get a job for years, and you've been out of work and keep on trying. And so the first thing I say, because it is frustrating, don't give up, okay? Everybody I've ever seen who is successful failed many, 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 many times. Okay. But they don't give up ever, ever, because it's just not in their nature. It's just something that they know if they keep on going, something is going to open. So I commend you, Carrie, for keep on trying, but keep on sending out all those CVs. Keep on promoting yourself, going on social media, letting people know, but don't just ask for a job. Okay. Everybody out there's asking. Okay. It's what can you do for them? Provide help for people. Helping people and serving people is really a success. And when people know that you have helped them, they will help you too, or give you advice, or share with you where you can go that's better, or you will come up with some different idea because what you're doing now is expanding your horizons by just talking to other people and helping them in that respect. And what I'm thinking of, because as I told you, I'm starting with Carrie, but where I'm going is um, sometimes we get really hit on the head, and it's extremely frustrating because we had no intention of being where we are. And I'm thinking of a story, and this woman is on my podcast, and the example about that, the podcast Aging with Purpose and Passion, people check that out. It's really good stories of women that overcome. And there's always a frustration. This was a woman who was in a rock band, playing in a rock band in Australia. Not just playing, a successful band. And in Australia, apparently, you don't just have these venues close together. You really have to travel to go to venue. And there are these huge venues. And these stars come in from North America. And she was in on these huge venues. And she was traveling literally every single day of the month of the year, day after day, traveling with the band, etc. And they had an accident. The van flipped over, and she ended up being in the hospital. And there it goes. So when you were talking about guilt, Dawn, what happens next? She could not perform. She was a vibrant rock singer, athletic, out on the stage, doing what she had to do, doing what she knew and loved. And then it stopped completely. They didn't even know whether she could walk again. And she also felt extremely upset and guilty because there goes the band, there goes her people, there go all the people that she was supporting. And what happened there is eventually in the hospital when she could do nothing, here's the frustration. And as you said, Dawn, eventually you have to accept that it is what it is. But she said, I'm going to be going back. Somebody gave her a gift of affirmations. And, an affirmation which is supposed to be making you powerful. Well, if you don't believe it, it's not going to work for you. So you have to create an affirmation that will work for you. So she started to think of affirmations that would work for her. And because she's a singer, she started to sing them. And what she started to do from her hospital bed was eventually recording them on a little recorder and singing them back to herself. And by singing them back to herself, she was starting to feel more and more empowered. She was working harder on walking, etc., etc. Anyway, what happened when she got out of the hospital? Remember, she had no band, she had nothing, but she had many, many followers. She started to sing her affirmations. And Wayne Dyer and all these people in America were starting to say, hey, this is interesting. Let's bring her on to our shows. Well, she traveled those huge stages with these people for years and years until now. Of course, she has her own shows and it's all aspirations, etc., etc. And the same band is back and everything is back. But what I'm saying, Carrie, to you is don't give up. But what she did was pivot. Did she think that she would be doing this? She said, I didn't know about spirituality. I didn't know about affirmations. I knew nothing about this. But it worked for me. And if it works for me, it can work for others. And when I see, the throngs of people that she's literally helping, she has a huge business today as well as performing once a year now only. But the bottom line is if you pivot, if you change, and often those frustrations or being stopped like midlife in her case, or young perhaps, I don't know. She was a rock singer, she had to be young during those days. And the bottom line is, what can you do? And so, Carrie, you know what you can do, but don't give up. And that's for each and every one of us. What can you do for others? For her, singing was something that she could do for others as well as herself. And so, always do what you know you can do and do it for others. As you said, Dawn, be grateful, give back. And you
Hmm.
know when you start saying, well, what about me? Everybody is saying, what about me? So don't say that. It's how can you help them? And that's a complete switch because we are in the world with other people. And the more you help other people, people are only too happy. Even the guy in customer service in tech, if you're nice to him, he'll be very nice to you. Okay. And that's true. It happens. Okay. So, Dawn, let's
No,
go.
well, it is absolutely true. And what you project is what you attract. And if you want value, you need to provide value. If you want to wait versus create, because
Mhm.
waiting will have its own set of necessary frustrations, right? It's never soon enough. It's never good enough when it does show up. So, what do you do for yourself? I always say if I was out of work, I would work for myself every day. I would have a schedule just like I was working for somebody and follow the schedule. And I think that's so important. So, it's not falling down, it's how do you get back up? And it could be just one leg at a time, standing up and then moving forward. Start where you are with what you have and go forward with it. And then one day it'll turn into 2 days. And it's just like building muscles. In the beginning, it's not very comfortable, it's not that familiar. It's something you prefer in time not to do when you started. But every day, if you notice, hey, I'm getting a little stronger, I'm feeling a little bit better, that's the reward that you get from doing things. And the opposite happens if you pull back, if you go in a corner, if you feel sorry for yourself. It's harder to get out of that situation because it continues to compound on itself. And then that becomes a bigger frustration than what created your situation in the first place. And don't ever give your power up. So when someone fires you, that's their opinion of you. Or maybe it was right, but it doesn't mean the past has to predict the future, that anybody's words have to become your reality. And that's where having support and being part of a support group, go around people who are in your same situation, find out what their strategies are, find out what they're doing to help one another. And another good part about that, you're not alone. So anytime you're going through a challenging situation, you don't always have the equipment necessary to get yourself out of it, but you know what the issue is, you know what your feelings are. This whole show was based on Beverly coming up with the word frustration. That was based on where she was at the time of the question. If I would have maybe contacted her an hour later, it might have been joy, would have been the word. But the important thing is that you can take anything and build from it. It doesn't always have to be a positive word or a positive feeling. But you say, hey, if I can get a little stronger, it was worth it. If I can get a little smarter, or even more importantly, if I can help somebody else, then my lesson wasn't as expensive because I split the price with someone else. And maybe that continues, just like these shows. You never know who it's going to touch. You never know what it's going to start a beginning for somebody who feels like they're only at the end. And time is precious. Life is a blessing and it's very short. There shouldn't be as much room or space dedicated to frustration or disappointment. It should be okay, here's where I start from again. How many times do you go against a strong wind and it blows you back, right? Until you buckle up a little bit more, put your head forward, strengthen, and you persevere. And I think perseverance is such an important element of empowerment or dealing with frustration is do a little bit today. It's like layaway. Put $5 down this week, put another $5, and pretty soon in 10 weeks, you got whatever it is you're laying away. And it's exciting, right? To say, I'm building something. And when the future looks bright, the past gets diminished quite a bit. When the sun comes out, the darkness disappears. And there's so many inspirational things to read, listen to, participate in, especially with YouTube and Google. I mean, if you Googled frustration, you will get like all the frustration information you'll ever want. Uh, and it's nice to know things because ignorance is a challenge. Knowledge is power. So back to you, Beverly.
Yeah, I'm once again, I'm thinking of everything that you said, of course. Um, and I was also thinking that I had a call that came in, and when we're frustrated, when we're frustrated, it's when we don't know what to do. And as you mentioned, Dawn, one of the things to do is ask people, what would you do? Or what's going on? Well, I had someone call me and she said, I've been off work for 7 months. I've got medical leave. And she's talking about this going on in her life and that going on in her life. And she has back problems, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, okay, I see many problems here. Now, why did you call me? So she said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I need counseling. I don't know if I need coaching. I don't know. I don't know what I need. I've been calling all kinds of people and they keep on telling me what to do. And, you know, so I just thought of the situation and I can see her frustration because she's in pain. She's got these doctor's notes. How long are they going to last, et cetera, et cetera. What happens when we're in frustration, turning round and round, we're spinning in our heads. I heard this young baby in the background, who knows what. So I said to her, well, how are you living? You're on medical leave. She says, well, my husband fortunately has a very good job, but I'm always worried if I can. And we're going into all kinds of stuff that are all normal because when you have pain or when something is holding you back or you're on a medical leave and you don't know you're going to get better and you don't know if you can work again and all these horrors that go on in your mind when you're frustrated and you don't know what to do, you're stuck. So I said, well, I don't think you need counseling, but I definitely think that you need coaching. So immediately the reaction is, of course, well, how much do you charge? Uh, and I laugh because what is this? Buying a bucket of apples? There are, well, it's $5 a pound. Okay, whatever. Okay. Well, the first thing I always say is, well, I think we should have a real conversation and find out if I'm even for you, or even if I can help you, or even if we are a good fit. And because it's not about the money, it's what do you need and what can I provide and can I provide it? This is the most important thing. And I think she was in absolute shock because I wasn't selling her a coaching package. I wasn't saying this is how many it's going to be for X sessions because how do I know? Right? This is the thing, right? If you don't know what you want, you should ask. And people are there. And you have to also respect that you know what you need. You do. And in this case, this woman had to be straightened out. She did. She's thinking in too many directions. She doesn't know where she's even going. And one of the things I said, before you're thinking of if you're going to get another job, let's just take a look at where you want to go with your job and if that's the right job for you. And who knows what your medical condition is like. You need more of a discussion. You have to get out of the stories you keep saying to yourself because those are the things that you're always being kept back. And when we're frustrated, we're spinning, we're like a hamster. I can do this, but I should do that. And I was told this by this friend, that friend. What you do is ask people who know. Don't, I always am amused when we ask people and take what we want from the right person that has told you exactly what you wanted to hear. Huh? Okay. And the reason for that is you know what you want. So, do you like this color, the black and the red? I like the red. Yeah, but don't you think the black looks better? And then you'll find someone that says, "Oh no, I really like the black." Yeah, I thought so. Like it's the same thing. We know what we want, okay? So we have to be specific about what we need. And it goes into everything, not just what we want personally for ourselves. Because the thought just came to me. I have a million thoughts. It's crazy. Okay. That's why I meditate. Yes. Okay. That in my building, which is a condo building, it's a large building, and they're getting very frustrated because now they're doing composting. Okay. So, composting is, for those who do not know it, you have to separate what is compostable, like all your veggie stuff and anything that can be recycled in the soil, with your papers and all your other things. So there's a special bin that the city gives out, and you have to put it in these compostable bags. Well, people have been thinking, because we do know that there's such a thing as recycle bags. So you have recycle bags that are plastic, but compostable bags, you can buy them on Amazon, friends. These are green and they say compostable. Okay. Well, people have been putting in the regular plastic bags. And the city has been getting very upset. And if they do it too many times, the building will be charged a fine because they're not going to take away the bin. Okay. So they put up another sign saying, do not put plastic bags in the compost bin. And my husband said, well, there seems to be one or two people that keep on putting plastic bags. And I said, well, of course, because they are not being specific. What they say is put green compostable bags in the bin, because people do not know. A plastic bag can be a very mild, and they say it's a recycle bag. What's wrong with that? But it's not, it's different. So, one thing to break your frustration is to ask the question. You may be saying it wrong, and people are not giving back what you really want because you're not being specific. You have to be able to say what you need. And if they're not getting it the first time, say it a different way. Say things so people understand, because bottom line, if they don't change that sign, there's going to be one or two of those little clear plastic bags that are going to go in and no, they are wrong. So you have to set boundaries with what you need. If people are going to be pushing your boundaries and you have no boundaries, they don't know, and you're going to be frustrated. Don't you know that I go to sleep at 9 o'clock and she keeps on calling me? Well, did you tell her? You know, these things can drive you crazy. Oh, I was up till 11 with this conversation, but did you tell her you were already in bed? That you have to set the boundaries. You have to be specific. And when you are specific, guess what? You will relieve that frustration. At least they will know. And you can come back on it and say, please understand that I am exhausted at this time and I'm really not listening to you because I'm just trying to be polite. Make a joke out of it. Okay. It will be accepted. Okay. Much like that cake, Dawn, that just didn't come out. Is could you please, when you come, pass by the bakery and bring cake? Okay. And just be honest and just say what you mean. Don't beat around the bush. And just remember, look within. You're the one responsible for your frustration. Don.
Yeah, that's terrific, Beverly, because I believe in those situations, being honest is the best situation because you only compound it when you distort it or try to make it like it's a better situation than it is. And the other aspect, it's context. And sometimes you don't understand context. Your first reaction is something that really may not be pertinent or relative. to it, which is easier, especially when people get text messages or emails and they're short and you don't really understand the whole thing and you start conjuring up things that you already thought of that person and you start applying it to that situation. Well, they're not very punctual, so they must be this and that too. Or they're not this. And it's a lot easier to say, I got your message. I just want to be clear about it. You know, could you elaborate? Can you share why? You know, because it's always the why that's the bigger issue, not the what. The what is something you won't change. If you drop a pitcher, it's broken. There ain't going back. But it's like, well, was it slippery? Did someone do something that didn't tell you about it? And because of that, you got clumsy or whatever. It's a million different things, but it also helps you because now you're talking about it instead of dealing with it yet. It's usually it's like let me get the facts, let me figure it all out first, and then I'll deal with it. But so far we got a half a picture, and there's some things inside of you that says this just isn't right, for whatever reason. And I know it's not right. I don't understand it, but I'm going to figure it out if I can. And the best thing you can do is say, did you notice this? I mean, just like in your building, after a while, there's other people that are dealing with it too. And how do they feel? And what could you do collectively? Or is it an honest mistake and is something not in a position that needs to be dwelled on too much? When someone says, I'm sorry, I'll try never to let it happen again, that should be good enough. But some people won't let it go. Well, did you know how it meant to me? Did you know? It's like, well, you're just clouding the picture instead of clarifying the situation. And really being the better person helps. I understand. I've done it before, no big deal. And that'll put it to bed. But, a lot of people use a little thing to bring up a big thing that really didn't have to get brought up, but they were waiting for the opportunity for that to happen. And it's, if you're talking about dealing with people, everybody is dealing with different things at different times in different ways, and giving people the time and space that they require would be a generous situation because a lot of people would say, oh, I was almost sure you'd react this way because that's how I would react. And it seems like you're just really cool about it. You're not getting overly excited and trying to resolve it really helps. Well, if I was responsible, I'll pay half of what it is. Or if that's not enough, I'll take care of it. Because sometimes you're majoring in the minors. As what are we dealing with? $10, $20. It's not worth making me crazy in my mind. I'd rather just say, hey, it's on me. I'm a sport. Doesn't bother me at all. I'd like to get over this, right? And it's not worth it. We have too much time together. We have too much friendship for something like this to be a barrier. Or is it something that isn't what we're talking about that would motivate you to say that? And it's better to get it out because you don't want to walk away from something with questions. I should have asked that. I should have said that. And now you go beyond frustration to self incrimination almost. And then you say to yourself, well, next time out, I will say it. And sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. But you got to understand, it's just part of life. And what was frustrating when you were 10 years old isn't frustrating today. And what's frustrating today wasn't frustrating when you were 10 years old, right? So as you change, situations will change, how you deal with it. Things that were important aren't, things that weren't are. And understanding those elements is key. And people want to know that, hey, she's a stand-up person. She takes responsibility and she's assuming accountability for it. And she wants to make it right, even though if you were to take it to court, she'd probably win her case. But who wants to go to court on something like that? Uh, and it's how do you feel at the end of the day? And sometimes you say, boy, I started out so frustrated and so many things were making me crazy. but I recovered after lunch. And then I had some great conversations, and some surprises came through that were unexpectedly good. And sometimes those will balance things out. And the next day, the sun will shine again. And I think people have to appreciate that there, as long as there's hope, there's opportunity. And that goes for Carrie and everybody else out there, because, there's so many winners in certain parts of someone's life. And there's so many disappointments too. It's a mixed bag. If you ever read autobiographies or listen to them, you find these overnight successes took 20 years to get there. And there was a lot of pain and there was a lot of challenge, but they did it. And that should inspire people, because usually that slogan or saying, if they can do it, I can do it. I know that person. I know they're not that much better or smarter, except they're committed and they didn't let the little things get in the way of the big things. And I think that's important. So we hit top of hour. I want to thank all of our wonderful commenters who didn't show up. And I'm glad they did, because if Harvey wouldn't have messaged me and said, I'm trying, I'm commenting, but it's not showing up, I wouldn't have known that. And I would have felt like nobody wants to see or hear what we have to say. And we did have about 18, 20 comments today. So want to wish everybody an unfrustrating day ahead. And if there's anything me or Beverly can help you with or clarify, feel free to reach out to both of us. We are there for you.